Hello and welcome to the second episode of the brand new Hearts podcast, the Heart and Soul podcast with myself, Graham Duffy, as I look back on the game from Saturday between St Mirren and Hearts, preview the game coming up this weekend against Aberdeen, a massive game, and also, for anyone that probably doesn't know, and I don't know why you wouldn't, it was 25 years ago to this day that Hearts defeated Rangers in the Scottish Cup final, the first time I think most of us have seen Hearts win the Cup. So I want to get your memories of that, and I'm delighted to say that after the last time I did this, I was on my own. Tonight, I'm not. I'm joined by a really good mate of mine called Greg Playfair. Greg, delighted to have you on. How are you getting on?
Good evening. I'm in a good mood. As you say, it's 25 years to the day of that famous day in May. Obviously, Jim Jeffries and Billy Brown masterminding a win against Rangers against the odds. We never thought we'd actually see it happen after all the kind of near heartbreaks and whatnot. But I'm in a good mood, mate. Good mood.
How old were you when that game happened? Because I was 20 when that game happened.
I was 6. I was 6, but I still remember it really, really vividly as well. Wasn't able to get a ticket to go to the match, but I was up there on the Saturday night, welcoming the bus back and stuff, and up again on the Sunday in Tynecastle for the parade. And remember, like obviously the youth team as well, playing their cup in beforehand as well. It was just a really, really great weekend. But I didn't really manage to make the most enjoyment at age 6, but in 2012, was able to really enjoy it fully, and also in 2006 as well. So yeah, good memory. Been spoilt really. 3 Scottish Cup wins, can't really pull that much.
That's very, very true. We'll get to that shortly, but we have to look back to the game at the weekend. But before we do that, now, anyone that probably doesn't know, myself and Greg, we are in a couple of different Scottish football chats, talking about other things apart from Hearts. So I've not really had the chance to talk to Greg about this before. But Greg, what's been your overall thoughts on Hearts' performances this season? Out of 10, what would you give the season? Because I've kind of said 6. It's not been particularly great. It's not been particularly bad either. But what's been your overall thoughts on Hearts' season so far?
I think 6 is a fair assessment, in all honesty, Graham. When you look at the season, how it promised so much in terms of the obviously guaranteed European group football, with the potential of obviously being Europa League. I think kind of since the Zurich game, our luck's kind of went downhill since. I mean, obviously, on the back of that, one of the things we need to talk about is the injuries early season, losing Halkett, losing Boyce, and then eventually losing Craig Gordon to season injuries as well, after already losing Benny Beningame. And I just feel the momentum for the side just never really... I mean, obviously, we kind of picked up after the World Cup break, but... the European escapades as well. I know there was some hard watches, but against some really good sides. Hope Fiorentina go on and win it. To be honest, the Conference League, I think that would show how good a side they were. But I do think we could have done better. I think after the Hib Cup game in January, I think obviously when we've discussed it a few times, the wheels kind of came off, and was it complacency that set in? I mean, we can maybe get into that, but I think obviously for us, we were going to finish in 4th is probably the realistic aim for this season. We might get 3rd, but we're needing a kind of couple of snookers as well, or maybe one snooker in terms of someone else beating Aberdeen in the remaining 2 games as well. We may need to be faultless, but yeah, it's a season that promised so much, but 4th place appointment, but I've also been is kind of where is a destination. Do you think if you didn't have the injuries, where could we have been? But a lot of teams could say that Hibs with Martin Boyle and Aberdeen. To be fair, I think they've had really many sort of season-defining injuries themselves, but any team can get injuries, and again, some of the signings we've brought in January weren't necessarily up to speed or up to par what we needed. But yeah, that's a slight disappointment finishing 4th. But I mean, who knows? We might end up finishing 6th at this rate. But we'll get into it.
Where did you stand on the Nielsen sacking? Because I've spoke to a few folk, and you listen to a lot of pundits that apparently know everything there is about Hearts and don't watch the games, and they were saying it was very harsh. What did you make of the Nielsen sacking? Because I think most of us think it was the right idea or the right decision.
Yeah, I think I was on one of your Twitter lives, and I said that obviously I was a big Robbie Nielsen fan. I was again by default right back because I couldn't play anywhere else. Had no talent, no no pace, nothing. So I was a right back, and I looked up to Nielsen in terms of this defensive right back. Had a Leicester City top with Nielsen too in the back, walking about Dalkeith High School. Like, what's going on here? So I did have a lot of time. Well, still do have a lot of time for him. But it was needed, I think anyone that was leaving the stadium after the St Mirren game, it was just needed. I don't know if poisonous is the right word, but there was an atmosphere there where he couldn't really recover from it. Again, there's people that are against him anyway from his first spell in charge about the Hibs, the obviously 2016 when they won the cup, 2-0 up and we effed it up. You then also had the Barcara game as well, the Malta part-time players. I think it was a policeman that scored against us and stuff, like having to get time off from the force to come to Tynecastle. Then obviously was the second spell where Roller Rangers. They survived that. Queen of the South I thought was arguably worse the following week, and then obviously as well I think in the recent weeks the performances haven't been up to standards. Well, in his last sort of few months in charge, and it was needed. For me, where Nielsen really changed was after his first spell and after his first season in charge, where again you could argue inherited a really good side in terms of really good championship. All those youngsters that we had, like Billy King, Nicholson, Walker, Patterson, even to an extent McHattie, some really good youngsters in the squad. And in that year, we were playing some really attacking football. Osman was a 4-2-3-1, and the front four were so interchangeable as well. And we're blowing teams away 10-0 and Cowdenbeath and 3-0s, 4-0s and stuff like that. And it was a really good, exciting stuff. Even Big Zefik, when he came in, I thought, done a job. Keatons was doing well. So it was a really exciting, expansive style of football. And then, although games against Rangers and Hibs weren't that great, I think that's, you could argue, Nielsen's biggest flaw in charge of both spells is that he gives too much respect to the opposition, and that changing our style of play to counter opposition rather than focus on our strengths to make them worry about something. And for me, that just became more and more apparent, especially with injuries and stuff as well this season. Which again, granted, with a bigger squad, but we just set our midfield trying out Snodgrass in a defensive midfield role somebody's never played in his career. Again, we got away with it for the first round of fixtures, but then when teams caught on to it, the first Mirren away game, I know he scored the goal, but after that, he just lost his effectiveness. And yeah, I think as much as it was kind of paining me to see someone who's won the Scottish Cup with Hearts, scored in Ball as well, that famous victory, someone who you could really say wasn't born a Hearts fan, but became a Hearts fan, contributes to the foundation of Hearts. He had to go. What was your view on it?
No, I mean, I kind of backed Nielsen pretty much all season. I was very much trying to back him, but after a while, it became pretty clear that he had to go. And that St Mirren game was we had action. I'm going to say what we did, and we'll get onto it as well in the conversation about the St Mirren game. But our defending at set pieces is horrendous, and it's never been sorted. And I think it was the right time. It was definitely the right time, and I did feel sorry for him because I do like him. A lot of folk don't, but I did like him. But it was the right time, and I think I felt sorry for him because you've talked about there. He was like a club legend, really. You look back to that tackle in Gretna in 2006. If he doesn't do that, we lose that cup final. There's no doubt about that. So he has got a real affiliation with the club, but it was completely the right time. But again, you get these pundits on Sky and stuff saying, "Oh, it was really harsh." Well, if you've watched Hearts all season, you would know that it's not harsh because we're watching very poor football. Yeah. The style of football was pretty average, to be honest. And I think you can see that the players weren't playing for him. And there's numerous games to go back to, but you look at the Rangers game at 10, we lost 4-0. I mean, he plays in midfield with Snodgrass, Garan Kuyol and Barry Mackay, which just was an absolute disaster. I don't know why he tried that. Now, people will say, do you know what, he tried something different, fair enough. but it didn't work, and that went totally against them.
It was a total punt, that game. Honestly, it was just so bizarre. I remember just hearing it and seeing it in the group chats and stuff, and I'm like, what's going on? And the deal was because I was parked my car before I was walking down to the game, and I heard them, and he's like, just going for it. You know, it's like, fair enough, but there's like going for it and there's having no midfield. And again, you would argue there's no recognised field because you would say Snodgrass was an attacking player. Absolutely bizarre stuff. I mean, just one last Robbie Neal. I think one of his flaws as well was that he was too loyal to certain players. So, I mean, obviously we've kind of signed a lot of players in kind of in his time in charge, but I mean, round square pegs and round holes comes to mind as well. Like Barry Mackay, I think at times was undroppable. I mean, I know he's kind of a fixture in Naismith's side, but he's kind of got him doing a kind of a more purposeful role. But guys like Snodgrass need to be dropped. And I mean, one of the biggest flaws, again, I said that about kind of being paying too much respect to the opposition, was I think the lack of youth options as well. We've seen already, you know, a lot of Hearts youngsters have signed. I think was it 12 youngsters now have signed new deals, and I know most are with a view to the B team next season. But seeing at the weekend there, young James Olsen being on the bench now, there's not a chance. I don't think James Olsen would get anywhere near a Hearts bench, even a sniffy perhaps training. If Hearts are still in this position where they're, you know, competing for fourth, potentially going for third, there's not a chance any youngster would be getting a chance. We've seen Finlay Pollock, you know, have his cameo as well early in the season in Europe and stuff, and like guys like that have just been ostracised. Connor Smith, you know, was there, and you know, again, I like Keogh, I like Grant, but is Connor Smith worse off than those two players? From what I've seen, no. Is Finlay Pollock any worse? From what I've seen, no. And again, we've spent probably the best part of over 600 grand, 700 grand on those two. And again, I think it just, you know, for me, that's part of the problem, that we need to be bringing youngsters through. Again, you know, you've got boyhood Jambos there, Macaulay Tate, who's been featuring in the bench as well, another Jambo, Finlay Pollock Jambos as well, that we need to get these guys in the squad.
If anyone's got any questions or comments they want to make, fire them in. I've got our first one here. Innes Morrison. Do you think Gordon Forrest does our set piece coaching? Would explain why we still can't defend set pieces? I don't know who does it, but it's getting a bit of a joke now. We'll come on to that during the game in a minute. But I mean, for a long time, I had Austin McPhee doing a lot of our set pieces. And again, they weren't particularly great either. And it just seems like we just don't seem to be able to defend our box. Kai Rowles and Toby Sibic, who we'll get to shortly, they're too soft. Again, we look at the first goal on Saturday. Toby Sibic completely loses Alex Gogic and we lose the goal. But if you go into Saturday though, so the team lineup comes out, there's only one change from the game against Celtic. The ridiculous, I actually want to get your thoughts on that as well, Greg. Now we're going to get to Peter Haring's one shortly, but that sending off of Alec Cochrane last week was an absolute farce. What was your thoughts on that at the time?
Genuinely, it's like one of those, like one for the older viewers, like Jeremy Beadle, like, you know, he's like on a kind of hidden camera show and stuff. And I've seen other ones as well. It's like, is it Ant and Deck in the VAR booth when they're going, you know, that pranking thing with the celebrities? It's like, right, now send them off. Like, it's one of those, like, you actually think, like, it's kind of bewildering. And the fact you've got all these kind of staunch, wrong one to describe a Celtic supporter, but all these Celtic supporters that are adamant and kind of green in the face that it's not even a red card. It just goes to show. And I think, I mean, we've heard some of the kind of, was it Dermot Gallagher and stuff, gave his opinion that actually it was a right decision. It's not. You know, I've heard some of the Scottish referee podcasts. Is it Des Roach? It does his. I know he's
really good. He's really good.
He's him and Stevie Corner have got their podcast, and they disputed it as well, being like it's not a clear. The thing is as well, right? Whether you give it as a book and a red card, again, it's a bookend. But you know, you could again, that's a side point. The main point for me is the clear and obvious error. it's not a clear and obvious error that the referee's made. It's subjectivity. So Willie Collum is subjectively saying, I think this is a red card and I think you should overturn it. And the thing for me, which again I think is quite worrying, is that these are our two best referees. Willie Collum had last year's Scottish Cup final. Nick Walsh had the League Cup final there. And these two were on the match and they got it wrong. So I think for me, I know obviously England last night, they had Howard Webb on and they had the audio of the referee's decisions. I think that has to come into it. I don't think they'll do it at the game or immediately after, but I think in the day after or whatever, the after release, why that was done, because we're still talking about now, almost 2 weeks on, and it's just an absolute joke. And again, we lost Cochrane for that, and I can understand why Hearts didn't appeal it, because it might be seen as a frivolous appeal. Get another ban on top of that. And I think probably Hearts are looking at the Hibs game being like, well, actually, Kingsley, as much as I adore the guy, his pace is kind of gone now in terms of after those injuries from last season. If you had Johan up against Kingsley or Cadden, right back as well, we're in trouble. So at least Cochrane gives us that bit of pace to kind of cover and kind of try and compete with Johan and Cadden and stuff. So that's probably why that's not being appealed, in my opinion, and saved us the cost. But ridiculous, isn't it? Absolutely, it's baffling. Don't want to say anymore. I'll get myself in trouble. I'll get cited by the compliance officer.
Well, mate, there's a few more to come in this game. But Toby, obviously Kingsley wasn't available for Saturday, but Andy Halliday came in. So Hearts lined up with Xander Clark in goal, back four of Hills, Rolls, Civic and Halliday, Haring and Devlin, and then pretty much the front four that we've used for the last few weeks, which I've actually quite enjoyed, is Oda, Shankland, Mackay and Ginnelly. On the bench was Ross Stewart, Grant, Keogh, Atkinson, Forrest, Nielsen, Tate, Wilson, as you mentioned, and Kuyol. Now, the last couple of games against Ross County and Celtic, we started really well on the front foot. I've seen a lot of positive signs. Wasn't quite the same on Saturday, though, Greg, was it? Didn't really start that well on Saturday.
No, and I think it's probably our kind of way form. It's probably been drummed into the players as well. And they know under Nielsen as well, it wasn't going great guns either. So I think psychologically that plays a part into it. The fact is as well, we know what we get with St Mirren. We've played them 3 times already this season. They're a Stevie Robertson side's always up for the fight. And I just feel that I don't obviously have Nielsen. Nielsen, he's away. We heard from Nate Force the Habit. We heard from Nathan after the game saying that's not how he set the players up to start the match. So I think it's back to the psychological thing in terms of, right, our away form's dreadful this season. We know we're in for a physical battle. Let's sit in, and obviously we paid the price.
I mean, we obviously think that we are the third biggest club in Scotland, and I think we are. But when you've only won 3 away league games all season, that is really pitiful.
Yeah, it's, to be honest, it's not something which is just new this season. As far as I can remember, and you're probably the same, like our away form in the league, apart from the championship seasons, is dreadful. Like, it is actually kind of pitiful as well. And for any team, I know Hearts have said we want to be the third best team, and then I know Nielsen and probably Joe Savage have said want to close the gap on Celtic and Rangers. But you need to kind of win or near enough of a perfect record at home. But you need to also win and be unbeaten away from home as well. And I think the best way of doing that, in my opinion, is going there with a belief to actually you can get something. But that's a psychological thing. It's like, again, I don't want to bring them into it, but it's a bit like Hibs with the Scottish Cup. Remember, for years and years, it was always that 105 and 106. So psychologically, you get worn down by it. They're going, oh, well, we're not going to win the Cup this year. And I do think there might be an element of that as well, that actually, like, players recognise that, you know what, we've been poor this season away from home. Let's not get beat, because that's worse. Let's not get beat, which is part of the hangover from Robin Nielsen in terms of, as you say, giving too much credit to the opposition. And I mean, I'll be interested. We'll talk about manager and stuff like that going forward. But yeah, that's something which again will need probably some time to kind of seep out of the players.
I mean, we didn't really look much of a threat that first half. I mean, most of the highlights that first half were St Mirren chances. Xander Clark makes a decent save for 18 minutes. Ryan Strain has a shot at him. They then have a goal offside, which was offside. Thankfully, I think Hearts got the line right that time. The only real chance we had kind of came after 20 minutes. Oda had a bit of a run and deflected shot. I think the last few games, now again, a few weeks ago, a lot of folks said that Oda's not good enough. He hadn't been getting a lot of game time. I think these last 3 games against County, he was very unfortunate to get taken off against Celtic, but someone had to get taken off. And then again on Saturday, I think in these last 3 games, Oda has been very good. The only thing that he needs to learn is when to shoot, because he seems to want to pass the ball all the time. Just shoot. But his technical ability, his pressing, has been very impressive, I think, so far.
Yeah, and he's not a winger necessarily per se, but I think what you get with these young kind of attacking wide players is that bit in the final third. That's always lacking. I think you can go back for years, I think, in terms of watching Hearts players. It's always that quality in front of goal. And I think that just comes with experience. And as you say, there's maybe that natural nervousness as well. And I think Oda isn't shy in like pressing and getting himself involved in the game. But again, I think Hearts had said at the time, maybe Nielsen, that it was seen as more of a project player and for next season. So I kind of thought he was being brought in as a Ginelli replacement, in terms of like an attacking forward, pacey forward. I've heard that like he's really good in training, like feet are apparently one player called that a joke in terms of how good he is in terms of his skills. But again, I think he probably just needs more opportunities, and that's the thing with young players. And he's moved across to the other side of the world, to a team where there's no other Japanese players that he can settle in with, which again I think makes a massive difference. But I think for next season, I think he's definitely promising. But yeah, I do feel sorry for him that he's been the one hooked. But I think what Naismith's been looking at is kind of the more experienced players, which is why people like Barry Mackay have had that stay of execution, stayed on the pitch, because they've probably got more experience and more know-how, although it's not a call I would make.
I mean, if you look at a couple of games that he has played in, you look at the Livingston game a few months ago, he should have scored in that game, and he didn't, and he got taken off. The Ross County game, he was brilliant, and he could have had a couple of goals in that game. And again, on Saturday, it was a real threat, so there is definitely something there with him. We'll get to Barry Mackay shortly because he's defending a lot of opinions, but the opening goal does come after 36 minutes. Again, it's another set piece. It's a ball from Mark O'Hara from a corner kick. Sibic gets caught, decent header by Alex Gogic, and Shaughnessy finishes. But again, and Innes Morrison makes a point in the group chat here. I think Sibic and Rowles are both class, but they both need to play alongside a more physical centre defender like Halkett. You can see the same problem in Celtic's defence without Carter Vickers. And this is a problem that Hearts have had all season, is defender balls into the box. We're far, far too soft.
Yeah, I think we've been needing that kind of... We've known since last season Halkett has had his injury woes. And then obviously we had Joe Wright on trial as well. We never signed him. And then that kind of led people to think, right, we're going to get a kind of more physical defender. I know we signed young Lewis Nielsen as well, which again is maybe... In an ideal world, you would have had maybe Halkett mentor him, Lewis Nielsen, maybe Nielsen deputise him. But again, probably thrown in there a team which was kind of bereft of kind of real leader, confident centre halves. In January as well, we never recruited a dominant, we call it meat and potato centre half. We brought in James Hill. Again, Hill's had a kind of up and down time in his loan spell here. But we need that, we absolutely need that kind of, again, I've said to others as well, from my pals, like we need that kind of Eastern European, no-nonsense centre-half, like absolutely with Heady's granny, that's the sort of guy that you want. Because, again, as Innes is saying, that both Sibic and Rowles are good defenders, but I think they play the best, as you say, as the passer or the kind of more, bring it out sort of player as well. You mean Sibic, you've seen his distribution this season as well in terms of some of his passes as well for some of the goals. Hibs, I think, was one of them as well, where he can step out, so we need that, and that's been sorely lacking all season. I mean, again, you hope Halkett stays injury free when he comes back in the summer, but I think we need to have a real kind of plan B alternative.
What do you make of Kai Rolls? Because I think since he's come back for World Cup, he's been very, very average at best.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like, obviously, we signed him in the summer. He's went to the World Cup. He's played alongside Harry Souttar, who got all the plaudits. And obviously, it's a partnership. So I thought Rolls done really well in the World Cup. He's obviously played against some really good players. He's came, obviously, at the time, Souttar was getting linked with, obviously, the 20 million move that he ended up making to Leicester. And then, obviously, I think there was, again, interest in Rolls. And then we gave him a 5-year deal. And then since then, I don't know, like, wouldn't say he's down tools or that, but it's just, I don't know, maybe a kind of hunger or there's maybe something like a point to prove that was gone, because before the World Cup, another Aussie coming in, we don't know much about him. We know he's in kind of World Cup squad, the Australia squad before the World Cup, but I don't know, it's like it was. It seems daft, but playing within himself because he had a move lined up. You know what I mean? Like, it was one of those where he's no actually. It's like he's trying to get through games, coast them through. If I have another good 6 months, I'll go in the summer. Like, it just seems like it was distracted from whatever reason. And again, a lot of these boys as well, and you've heard some of the stories from some of the guys unsettled and stuff like Atkinson and stuff like that as well, feeling a bit unsettled in Edinburgh. I don't know whether that's been the same with Rolls, but I don't know, but it just seems really off it. And the thing for me is he's not a kind of commanding leader at the back as well. Again, it was interesting when our kind of downfall, when our form nosedive, Snodgrass used to always get on at him. Like, he was the one that would be shouting and berating at him at corners, sitting in the Gorgie, at corners. He was absolutely giving him dog's abuse. And I don't know, like, just even he would never pass to him and stuff. So I don't know whether then a confidence thing happened, or again, what happened there, and we've heard of rumours and stories that players were in factions and stuff in the latter days of Nielsen's time. I don't know whether he was one who was affected by it, but again, it seems like he sent his twin brother back after the World Cup. You know what I mean? Like, he's got himself in a one of those bubble wrap sort of thing, just to make sure that he doesn't get an injury, he can go again in the summer. But yeah, shadowed the player, and it's a shame because he is a really good player there. But yeah, I don't think he's being asked to lead a defence isn't his forte, and playing without a kind of recognise someone that's going to, as I said, a stopper alongside him has also not helped him either. But again, we need to see who comes in and what system they play and what players they go for.
Yeah, I mean that first half was pretty much a first half that we've seen numerous times this season. Very little threat going forward. Shankland couldn't really get involved. I will get to Barry McCash shortly. And then I put out about a minute before this, I put on Twitter just before the halftime whistle went, this is a massive 45 minutes coming up in the second half. As soon as I put that tweet out, Hearts conceded a second. Now, there were 3 contentious decisions in this game that David Dickinson, I think, got 1 right and 2 wrong. This is the first one he got wrong. James Hill goes up for a header. It's a fair challenge. The guy goes down and they get a free kick from it. First of all, Greg, it's never a free kick in the first place.
No, I mean, I think there's an incident as well, because I do the Hearts fan column on the BBC Sport. I can't remember if I made it in the final edit, but I'd put as well that there's that Halliday challenge as well, which you're thinking, that's a booking. You know what I mean? Halliday, like, how's Dickinson missed that? How's VAR? Because, I mean, knowing our luck, could have been given us a red card. It's more of a red card than Herring's, to be honest. But the James Hill one's laughable. Absolutely laughable. But I was seeing I think it was with Laurie Dunsire, the Hearts TV commentator, was saying that the St Mirren fans just are so, like, torn-faced. They appeal for everything, right? It's probably at that point in the match where, obviously, as I said, post-Halliday thing, when nothing was given, you can imagine, we'd be the same at Tynecastle, like, the referees, like, what's going on? They've just shouted for that, and I think the referee's been like, oh, well, I'll have to give them something. And that's why the free kick was given, is the only thing I can think of, because it's more a foul on Hill than it is against, than he's given on Hara. It's mad. Again, baffling.
From the free kick, Ryan Strain then scores. Is there a question mark over the position of Xander Clark for that goal?
obviously, I think the guys in sports team were saying there was a bit of a deflection, and I think you've kind of got to recognise that as well. Like, especially, as I said, when you go one way, although it should have been going that way in the first place, but I didn't know what to dig out Xander because he's made 2 other good saves. Where actually, like, he's maybe not got a right to save them. So we could be pernickety, but I think we always compare him to like Craig Gordon because like Craig Gordon saved that, he's caught it, and we've lost a counter attack. You know what I mean? That's what we expect in that position if it Craig Gordon in goals. But I mean, just imagine we had guys like Pereira in goals, Kurskis or whoever else. You know what I mean? Like Anthony Basso, some absolute. Peter Enkelman, some absolute stinking goalkeepers. So yeah, again, you have to give credit to the guy, and obviously it takes a bit of a deflection as well.
Are you wearing a Hearts goalkeeper's top by the chance? That looks like a Henry Smith goalkeeper's top.
It does. It's the. This is my story, boys. I think they brought out a few weeks ago and
they
stuff.
Have,
so
yeah.
I turned up at the Hearts and Mirren game at Tynecastle, and it was always like that was like the first time they came out, the first game since they obviously came out, and literally it was like a who's who of everyone wearing them. But that's what it's for, eh? Goes for a good cause. So.
I've been on the wee Gorgie Ultras website having a look at a few things to buy off that as well. There's some decent stuff in there. There's some decent stuff in there, to be fair.
I can see you with a bucket hat, to be fair. Summer's coming up. You don't want to get a burnt forehead.
Mate, I think my wife would divorce me if I did that, to be honest. I've already got a couple of things in order for the Heart shop. I'll be killed. Half time comes, we're 2-0 down. As I said, massive 45 minutes to go. We look like we're going to be losing out in third place completely. We make a change at half time. Probably no surprise. Atkinson comes on for Andy Halliday. Now, I have never been shy in the fact that I am not an Andy Halliday fan. I've never rated the guy. A couple of goals against Hibs last season does not make me like him even less or even more. Andy Halliday, I mean, for me, I would not be disappointed if he left in the summer because I've never rated the guy.
I think he did play well at the start of the season, and I think last season as well had a similar spell where he was really good, where you can't really grumble with it. But I think at the time he was brought in as a signing for the Championship, steady, can cover a couple of positions, get us up, get another deal obviously for last season. Again, he played his part in games. I mean, I remember it was a spell him and Haring played really well in the middle of the pitch. It was the Hibs semi-final at Hampden as well. They played together. I thought they'd done quite well that game. So he goes through fits and spurts, and obviously Naismith as well has a bit of a kind of liking for him as well. So, but again, if Hearts want to get better and Hearts want to, again, for next season, regain third and, do it in some style, guys like Halliday really shouldn't be getting much game time, in my opinion. We should be looking to replace those guys, bring in first team starters and the guys that are in positions right now. So, like say Cochrane in the middle or Devlin if he's playing centre mid, those guys should be fighting for their place as well, which should knock Halliday down the pecking order, is the way I see it. But yeah, I know you're not his biggest fan. You've said that to me many a year.
I just don't see what the guy does. He doesn't offer anything for me. A couple of times, yeah, he's done it okay, but he just doesn't offer enough for me. He can stick to his Open Goal podcast, so that's about all he can do. We started the second half slightly better. Again, Oda has a couple of decent opportunities. Another change, 61 minutes, George Grant comes on for Cammy Devlin. Now again, Cammy Devlin divides a lot of opinion. I am a massive Cammy Devlin fan. I think he offers a lot to the team in terms of breaking up the play. In terms of on the ball, he's maybe not the best, but I think you need a guy like Cammy Devlin on your side because he is an all-action type of player.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the middle on this one, right? Because I see his purpose. It's almost like a Makalele, right? Breaks up play. That's all you do, right? But in terms of asking him to do something productive with the ball, i.e., pass it forward, no, can't do it. Shoot it. I mean, we've seen me shooting as well. Like everyone mills him in. One of his goals was a tackle. I think that sums him up really. But again, I don't get the whole. I get the fact that obviously a lot of kids and fans love him and stuff like that because he's, gets stuck in a bit of a terrier and stuff like that. But and I know some of his stats. I think I seen a tweet earlier today, something about his stats look great and stuff. But given the eye test, I'm not a massive lover of him in terms of. I don't think he's a must start. Put it that way. If we get guys coming back in, arguably we could do with two certain midfielders next season, whether we play a midfield 3 or midfield 2, whatever. I think he's replaceable. Like is the way I see it. And again, depending on opposition, if it is like we play the Old Firm or we're playing a derby or playing away up at Aberdeen or something, we're playing a midfield 3. Yep, I can see a role for him in those sort of games, which I suppose kind of negates the need for Keogh. But I don't know. Again, he's probably the Australian I think is the least talented, and it's a controversial statement to make when you've got Rolls and Atkinson and let's discount Qual, but I think he's the least talented out of those three. Again, controversial, but it's my opinion.
Greg, that's very harsh. Didn't expect to be that harsh.
No. I do like him, but I think Atkinson's good. Like, I actually think Atkinson as a wing back has put his we'll get into that. I think Atkinson's good. I believe he's bereft of confidence as well, similar to Civic earlier in the season. And again, when players aren't having any confidence, they're not going to put good performances. But I think for me, there's a reason, right, in which obviously Cammy Devlin didn't get a minute at the World Cup squad, and the likes Keanu Bacchus did. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying. Like, if it was as good as everyone believed, he'd be getting ahead of Keanu Bacchus, who again I think is a really good player. But that's my thoughts.
But Cammy Devlin's got Lionel Messi's shirt sitting in his room. Bacchus doesn't.
Exactly that. I know what I mean. Like that just kind of like that terror and stuff, and obviously everyone's ripping him and stuff. But again, fair play. As I said, I don't think he's the most talented in terms of like playing style and stuff like that. Again, but he's got tenacity, he's got heart, which again goes down well with Hearts. If you're seen to not have the full ability, as long as you put the effort in. Go back to Robbie Nielsen, not the most talented, but put the effort in. Hearts fans admired that. So, as I said, I would, as much as I like Cammy Devlin, I would want us to get a replacement there, or hopefully Benningham be back in a full pre-season as well. I don't think him and Benningham play together as well. Again, in a fully fit Hearts squad, and Benningham again, it's a small sample size because Benningham's been injured more than he has actually been fit for Hearts. So we don't know what player we're getting back after the summer. But again, if we get Benningham last season of those levels, Devlin doesn't get in because I don't think they should play together in terms of how we want to play moving forward. But again, depending who the manager is.
What about the guy that came on for Cammy Devlin, George Grant? Do you see a role for him next season? Again, he's shown very few glimpses of anything really. Do you see a role for him next season?
Again, I've wrote about this before as well. I do rate Grant. I think he was signed though as a kind of a number 10. Because obviously he was signed, and then we got Snodgrass, and you think, what's going on there? Surely that kind of negates the need for Grant. But there is a player there. But again, like I said earlier, is he any better than what we've got in terms of youth signings and or youth members? And again, there's obviously young Macaulay Tate. There's Connor Smith, who again I can't remember if he's got a new deal for next season. He might be going. But you've got Finlay Pollock. You've got the young lad Gregor Crookston, who's been training with the first team as well under Naismith. So if money came in and was wanting to go back down south, I wouldn't be against letting him go. Although I do think there's something there. with him. Boy, what do you think?
Again, he's shown glimpses of something, but again, I wouldn't be that bothered if he left, to be honest. There's quite a few players I wouldn't be that bothered if they left. I mean, we'll get on to Gino, who I think I want to stay. But George Grant, for me, I think he started okay. I think where he let himself down was that game against Zurich. Getting sent off in that game for that dive. That set him back quite a bit, and a lot of fans were like, "Oh no, that's not good enough."
I think the Motherwell was worse. I think people after Motherwell were like, write him off. I think because obviously got sent off against them. Like that was it. It was like Zurich, you're like, oh right, naive, never played European football, went down, refs don't tolerate that. But it was the Motherwell game. Like, right, get him out of the team, get him back to England. Drive him back to himself. That the old Daz saying on kickback, like, I'll drive him back down myself. Like, it was. Again, it's a bit like Nielsen was said earlier, right? Once the court of public opinion is against you, it's really hard to win them back, especially Hearts fans. We know they're all can be greeting faced at times. I'm the same. I can be really hold an opinion, and it's hard for it to change.
I mean, you spoke about Cammy Devlin. I personally think Ollie Lee was a better player than George Grant, to be honest. And he offered more as well.
I think Ollie Lee was terrible. Like, I know he's not retired because of injury and stuff. I again say to my mates, I thought, again, because he scored against Hibs, again in that 1-0 win, he's seen as a hero, but it had a good song. People singing about Ollie Lee. I didn't like him at all. I thought, again, you could tell when he pitched up, he had zero pace. Again, where do you play him? Is he an attacking player? Is he a box-to-box player? Is he a defensive player? It was none of those. So it was just a bit like like, who knows what his role is. Set pieces wasn't that great. Ended up getting replaced by Harry Cochrane taking them, 16-year-old. So for me, that says all about him, actually. Like, but I can see where the comparisons with Ollie Lee are brought in. Can see it though.
Well, we could have been 3-0 down because Ryan Strainer's a decent shot, saved again by Xander Clark, who again was probably our best player on the day, to be honest. But we do get a goal back. Really good play by Nathaniel Atkins on the right-hand side. Really good ball in the box. And there's Josh Ginnelly. At that point, Greg, are you thinking the comeback's on?
Yeah, good work by Atkinson. I said earlier, he's, again, I think in terms of like a ceiling, he's probably better than Devlin, I think, in terms of, as controversial as it is, but I think in terms of a wing back or attacking fullback these days, getting forward, and again, a bit of trickery, a bit of belief. And I thought he done well. And I mean, this is it for Ginnelly this season. He's now a striker, and that's where he should be playing. And again, at that point, you kind of rock a team, especially 2-1. You've got, I can't remember how long was to play. There was still a bit in the second half to go. You kind of have that belief that actually, the comeback's on. Again, especially as you've seen against Celtic and against Ross County, you think we've got the momentum there. So I did think at that point we're coming back into it.
Yeah, I thought that as well. And then Hearts made another change and brought Keogh on. And I thought, well, that's that fucked. Because I generally don't know what Keogh does. I don't rate the guy at all. And I've said that numerous times. When you're paying money for a guy and give him a 3.5-year contract, I'm expecting something slightly better. But I genuinely, and this is actually where I agree with your point you made earlier on, I was a massive fan of Connor Smith. Now, I would rather see Connor Smith playing than Keogh, because I think Keogh is a dreadful footballer. I really honestly do.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to that. I think there's a player in Keogh, but again, court of public opinion's against him, so it's really hard to win that back. I mean, it was brought in, make no mistake about it, it was brought in as Haring's replacement. So obviously he comes out of the team and Keogh comes in, gets bedded in. I mean, for Keogh, it's more games in which, again, you're looking to maybe play Celtic or Rangers away, Aberdeen away, Hibs, Derby, in the big games. But even then, you need to see something. Games at Tynecastle where Hearts have 60% possession against, again, teams out with, the top four, I would say, that were, or other Celtic, Rangers, Aberdeen and Hibs, against those oppositions. Again, games like that, you don't need a Keogh. And that's the games he's probably played most as well. And it's difficult because in those games, we're not, even under Nielsen, expected to be defensive or expected to take the game to teams. And he's not played well there. And again, I think there's a confidence thing within him. I mean, he gets slagged for his pointing and stuff like that. I mean, I do think there's a bit of truth into that as well, that, again, when the going gets tough, it's easier to be seen that you're wanting the ball, but not actually wanting it. Like, oh yeah, I would have made that run, but you never passed to me. And there is a bit of that's going on. But again, if a bid comes in offered to make our money back or a small loss, I wouldn't be against it. But again, he's someone who I think could do well under a new manager, depending on the system. But again, I'm biased. I want young players in the team, so an opportunity for Connor Smith to come back or someone else to get a chance, then by all means.
Well, you talked about the fact that Keogh was brought in to replace Haring, and on the 78th minute, this is the second contentious decision. Now, there has been some very bad refereeing decisions this season. This, for me, is the worst one yet. So Peter Haring goes in for a challenge on Mark O'Hara, just inside the St Mirren half. It's cynical, yes, but it's not reckless. It's not high. It's not particularly dangerous. It's not denying a goal score opportunity. It is the worst decision I have seen this season. And what makes it worse is the fact that Greg Aitken in the VAR room agreed with it.
Hi. Again, I think I put in my thing, on my BBC thing earlier, that he must have been watching Eurovision build-up, because there's no way he was watching that game, because it is baffling. It is absolutely bad. You know, when they talk about making, like, you know, a clean obvious error, like, that is an error. Like, no one's appealing for it, apart from, I said earlier, the torn-faced St Mirren fans who were appealing for everything. And the fact he's gave it is just beggars belief. Again, we talked about, well, obviously Cochrane getting sent off last week, and I think for me, it's always telling is the reaction of the opposition players. No one's screaming in the ref's face, send them off, whatever that. Same again with St Mirren. Again, I can't recall, maybe because they're merged into one, but I can't recall like much of an uproar from St Mirren players going red card or, you know, get them off. Like, none of that. Like, I don't know what the ref was saying, and I think he was being swayed by the crowd there and being like, you know what, I'm just guessing here. You know, I'm having a bad game. And listen, we all have bad days at the office, but I think if he worked in my office, I'd be telling him not to come back.
I mean, do you think, because I've said this a few times over Twitter and stuff, do you think that the standard of officials this season has actually got worse since VAR came in? Because it feels like every game now, referees don't make decisions because they think VAR will sort it, or you're getting other games that are getting re-refereed. And the thing is as well, and this was mentioned by Des Roach and Steve Conroy last week, it's quite telling that still the only referee that's gone to the monitor and not changed his mind is Willie Collum.
Yeah, and
that says that, and that was the Rangers game where he should have sent Ryan Jack off, and he didn't. But do you think the standards actually got worse since VAR came in?
Yeah, absolutely has. And I think the problem that you had is, and again, it's probably mentioned by Des and Steve on their podcast, is that when Ian Maxwell goes, we're going to make mistakes, you're going to have to grin and bear it. But these mistakes could cost Hearts 3 million, 5 million, whatever it is, the prize money, the difference from getting guaranteed group football. And again, it sounds like sour grapes because we're Hearts fans, because other teams, Aberdeen, have had their things, and Celtic every week they've got a conspiracy against them. But it's just so bad. And I do feel sorry for refs, and I don't want to, you know, put the boot in them. But it must be very difficult there when you're going in. And again, there's probably a fear where refs are going, well, listen, I'll get told, like, I'm just waiting for my mate to tell me. And again, I don't think referees are intending to be bad. There's not a case of like some referees are going in to be, look at me, like I'm going to make this about me. I think some do enjoy the kind of revel in the, you know, the status of it. But there's a lot of referees that are just out of their depth, and again, I talked about players being bereft of confidence. Referees are bereft of confidence. They're absolutely like shot, but because these are our best officials, they get chucked in and they do the VAR. And again, because this is like, it's a business, it's multi-million pounds for some clubs as well. In fact, £1 million, especially if a team gets relegated to the Championship. Like, I think it's £1 million that they lose out on in terms of turnover and like revenue, ticket sales and stuff. It's big business, and it's so amateurish as well. Like, they bring it in halfway through a season. Like, why could they not? Again, I'm not dismissing the Championship in Scotland or League One or that. Make the mistakes there. Like, go down and make it. If you have to bring it in halfway through a season, do that. I mean, they were doing it at under 14s games. Hearts had under 14s games done by VAR, and the World Cup and stuff like that. Like, it's just mad how, like, we went from that to then first game being Hearts Celtic. Like, it's like learning on the job, and it's amateur hour with SFA. Amateur hour.
It is, and Scott says, and we did mention this earlier, Scott, if you watch the free kick for St Mirren's second goal, it says all you need to know about the shocking Scottish referees. And again, Scott says Greg's saying exactly what I said after the Celtic game. And it's just, and what you said a minute ago was actually right. Because normally you would see players going mental asking for a red card. No St Mirren player asks for a red card. The St Mirren bench don't go mental either. Everybody looks genuinely stunned that that's a red card. You see that kind of challenge every week. And it's never a sending on. And, you know, again, you said it on, and you were right as well, when you said you can understand why Hearts didn't appeal the Cochrane one. This one, we have to absolutely appeal it. And I tell you what, if this doesn't get dismissed, and the hearing is tomorrow, if this doesn't get dismissed, that's an absolute disgrace, because it is never, ever a red card.
You mean we don't want it to be dismissed? We want it to be heard and they overturn the decision?
That's what I meant.
They don't want to just dismiss it out. Like, that's classic.
But to be honest,
SFA for you,
but to be honest, it's the SFA. They probably won't. They probably won't.
I don't want that. But yeah, listen, it's like a kangaroo court. Like, we're actually talking about this the day before, and neither of us have a clue how it will go. Like, it could get overturned. We could get another frivolous one-match ban added on, and that could be the last we see Peter Haring. Like, who knows? Like, it's and that's the sad thing. Eh? Like, because of where referee standards are at this moment in time, don't have a clue.
Scott says life ban for Haring coming. Do you know what? I wouldn't be surprised, because it is the SFA. I mean, if you look at the Aberdeen one where Graham Shinnie got sent off, at the time that wasn't even a free kick. The referee even get in, and they went to VAR and sent him off. So I genuinely don't know how it's going to go tomorrow. I really don't. But at that point, I'm thinking the game's probably done. We know that Aberdeen are drawn 0-0 with Hibs. Still got a slight chance to get back in it. Again, we make another change. Forrest comes on for Roder, 9 minutes to go. And then the third contentious decision, although for me it's not. So Gino goes into the box. He is elbowed in the back by Ryan Flynn. For me, it's a penalty. But I've heard Bobby Madden, Leanne Crichton, even Liam Corbett on This Is My Story yesterday said it's a soft penalty. It's not soft. It elbows in the back. It's a penalty.
It's a soft penalty. It is a soft penalty, but it's a penalty. I think the whole point is Gino is wanting the contact, right? So he's wanting it. But the stupid thing for Ryan Flynn, I don't know why Ryan Flynn's going in like that, because when you're doing that, like, sorry, great audio. If anyone's, I don't know if this is an audio podcast as well, sorry. But obviously he's going in like a forearm smash against him. And there's no need for that. Like, I genuinely don't know why he didn't jockey him, because as soon as you do that, and obviously, again, if players move at speed and all that, and probably Gino, like, probably a whip it as well, we've seen, like, when he's trying to move and you get that, obviously you're going to fall over. So as a penalty, again, if it was given against us, I'd be like, oh, like, it's soft. But, 10 years ago it wouldn't be a penalty, or 5 years ago even, it wouldn't be a penalty. But the way modern football is these days, it's a penalty. So I don't know what B.Y. Wadden's retired, right? Because he's thinking it's not a penalty. And it obviously it is. Like, it is soft. Like, I do. But the telling thing as well on that is Steve Robinson said it was a penalty. So the St Mirren manager concedes it, and I'd imagine he'll be tearing lumps through Ryan Flynn for making that challenge, because he didn't need to. And that's the thing. Like, again, for you, it is a penalty, but I can see why I like maybe Liam Corbett saying it's soft, because it is soft. I'd hate it against me, but that's modern football these days. You're going to get given against you for that. So, and obviously Shankland does what Shankland does.
I don't know if you had the discussion after the game on Sportstime with Michael Stewart on that. He was very critical of Bobby Madden and Leanne Crichton, saying that's a penalty all day long. I mean, Michael Stewart's actually backed us up quite a lot recently, which does feel mental, but he was right on Saturday.
Aye. As I said, Michael Stewart, again, can rub people up the wrong way with his opinions. I quite like Michael Stewart, and certainly put them to rights anyway. I mean, it seems easier sitting in the sports scene or sports sound studio watching cups back and going, "Oh, giving your opinion," but the fact is, like, they're not the ones making the calls; they're not the ones on the pitch making decisions. So they're just a fan. For me, the way I look at it, it's like a fan's opinion. But obviously, they got it wrong, so that's fine. Fans can be wrong.
Yeah, Scott says, if I was a St Mirren player, I'd be more annoyed with the defender, and he is right. Any touching all the players will go down in the box, which is true. But I looked at the stats on this game, and I know stats mean nothing. but we had 64% possession to 36% possession. We had 12 shots to St Mirren's 15, and we have 5 shots on target to St Mirren's 8. Now, this has been a constant theme for Hearts most of the season as well, that we've had a lot of possession but done very little with it. And I said before the game, Greg, going into this game, we had to win that game. It was a massive, massive game. And yet again, that performance was below par. But what I did like is that after the game, Naismith was interviewed and he was raging about the first half. Now, again, I'll get to this in a minute, but I think Naismith's interviews after a game are very different to Robbie Nielsen's. He actually does criticise the players, whereas Robbie didn't really do that.
Yeah, I think perhaps what Nielsen said on Sports Sound or interviews after might be, it's like anything, might keep things more in house. Whereas Naismith is kind of that combative, fiery character that we've seen at Everton, Norwich, Rangers, Hearts, where he'll call it as he sees it. And again, the thing is as well, he's still a new manager. What's that, 5 games or something that he's had is in charge. So he is going to make mistakes. He is going to, listen, this is his job edition, right? He needs to be, try and make an impression on Hearts fans. Like I say, it's the core of a Hearts opinion. It can go quickly either one of 2 ways. So you don't get a long kind of leeway in terms of making your mark. So he's doing the right things with the interviews. Again, you've said you prefer it to Nielsen. That's probably what he wants as well. But he was right, we were poor first half. Second half, we got away with it. But for me, again, and this is where it comes back to it, we're in the same position Saturday evening that I expected us to be. I expected us to still be 5 points behind Aberdeen. I expected them to actually beat Hibs, in all honesty. So Hibs done us a favour. We've got ourselves to blame, but 3 games left, 5 points wing, Aberdeen up next. Like, again, it's a slim possibility, but it's still a possibility all the same that we can actually be able to get third. But it needs to start on Saturday.
Yeah, when we'll get to that in a minute, I want to get on some of the players as well, because I listened to This Is My Story podcast last night, and Liam Corbett was raging with Barry Mackay, and I kind of agree with him. I mean, again, Barry Mackay is technically a very good player, but far too often he's shown very little, and in big games he doesn't do enough. And again on Saturday, he was a passenger. If you look at the likes of, for example, Oda presses, Oda carries a threat, Oda at least tries to do something. Barry Mackay is playing on the periphery. And again, you said it earlier on about Robbie Nielsen being too loyal to players. Barry Mackay seems to stay on the park every week, yet offers very little.
Yeah, I think it's just for that magic moment, almost like give him the ball, we can do something. But again, you look at his track record this season, he's, again, arguably had a handful of magic moments. And again, more often than not, that games pass him by where he's not made a meaningful contribution. So again, I also look at the fact that we picked him up from League One Fleetwood, where he was kind of released. So that for me kind of says where he was at in his career. We've kind of gave him last season. He helped us, contributed for us to get third. But this season, was last season a purple patch? Was it in his career? Was that the anomaly? And this season is what a standard Barry Mackay performance is. There's Rafe Rovers fans that detest him because they count him as one of their worst ever loan signings when he came from Rangers, because he had that similar attitude, being like, I play for Rangers, I'm not going to try, and just this sort of demeanour that a lot of Hearts fans seem to think that he's got. He's shown again for some. Again, he's someone I think that can contribute, but he probably needs a spell on the bench to kind of work his tail off to get back in, because was it St Johnstone earlier in the season? He came off and obviously scored. So, like, when he's been, told, listen, you need to prove yourself, he's responded. But when he starts, I don't think we get that fire from him, that kind of, I need to do something to earn my keep. So, for me, Barry Mackay, yeah, again, I'm probably in agreement with the other guys, but I wouldn't go too hard on him, because there's 2 managers that have seen fit to play him. Like, the Bucks should also stop with them as well.
A touch on a positive. Scott, he has 3 games to save himself for his own door. I do want to touch on a positive though, because Saturday, I know he didn't really have a lot of the ball, but 26 goals this season for Lawrence Shankland. I know folk will say a lot of penalties. It doesn't matter. 26 goals in his first season for Hearts. And again, I've said this in our Twitter spaces as well, his all-round game is so good. It is kind of like Liam Boyce. His link-up play, his hold-up play, his touch. I knew when he signed he was going to be a good player for us. I don't think I realised just how good he'd actually be, though.
Yeah, he's amazing. Like, again, losing Boyce was a blow. And again, I think I called it before, the Boyce role that everyone knows in terms like that, almost like a number 10 dropping in. Him and Sivs dovetailed really nicely last season. Again, that's what got us over the line and got us to the cup final and got us third place. Him and Gino are a bit different in that obviously Gino just running behind. I think Sims is, again, probably not the most physical, but wouldn't shirk the physical aspect of it. And I think they've had a really good, again, it's a fruitful partnership up front when they've played together. And he's just an intelligent player. Again, having that responsibility of captaincy as well, I think probably has suited him. I know some people were maybe a bit surprised that he was given the armband band at the time. People were calling for like Snodgrass or Kingsley or whatever. But again, you give it to who, again, could be your most important player. And this season, he has been the most important player. He's been a player of the season as well. Again, I dread to think we would have been this season without Shankland. Even penalties as well, I think, is a bit of an art, in terms of the fact he's not missed any. He did miss one, but got retaken. He's not missed one properly this season as well. I think, that shows ability, that shows technique. So he's absolutely, for me, again, one of the best signings we've made in the last few years, as far apart from Craig Gordon. Since Craig Gordon, our best signing since him, definitely.
I look back to that Scottish Cup goal against Hibs. The touch that he had, the ball into Humphrey as a layoff, and then that finish was just so sweetly struck. Yeah. And he's been phenomenal. Scott says if you watch Open Goal, Shanks is on it this week. Oh no, we've got the Rangers. Didn't say that, please. But it wouldn't have escaped your notice, I'm sure, Greg, that in the Edinburgh Evening News this morning, there was comments by Josh Ginelli that he wants to stay at Hearts. Now, again, months and months ago, I think myself and a lot of other Hearts fans would have said, nah, get rid of him. But now, he's proven himself to be crucial to Hearts. He's actually scored 9 goals this season. So is it imperative now that we keep Josh Ginelli? Because he's got the one thing that we have lacked for a while, which is pace.
Yeah, and again, I said this about Barry Mackay earlier. Is this Josh Ginelli's purple patch for Hearts? Because I know when he first joined in the Championship, he had that flurry at the start, and obviously the Dundee game where he played really well, and he was seen around the stadium, obviously at the time was empty, going like, wow, imagine this place when it's going to be full. Or was it, the Celtic game when the fans were back in, and he was looking around and going, oh, look at this, this is going to be some stadium. And again, he's been great. I think he didn't want to play up front originally, and he's been kind of had to be coaxed into playing that role, and it's been amazing. As I said, I think that suits him to the ground. I think back to the Scottish Cup final in 2020, he kind of played up top as well when he came on as a sub, and he was great. Obviously, we got to extra time against Celtic. I've always seen him as that sort of striker, but I think this is where Hearts fans are kind of a bit divided a little bit in terms of how much you spend on him. Do you make him one of your highest earners? Because I believe he'd be asked for that. And again, he'll say he's entitled to that given his contribution this season. But is he replaceable? It's a hard one to say, but Josh Ginelli, because of Brexit, and again, I say this to my pals and stuff as well, is he can go to the English Championship and he will get 3 or 4 times his salary. No questions asked in terms of Hearts. Because again, the money down there is ridiculous. So it really depends how much you want to spend on him. Because even probably League One teams in England, like, I don't know, Sheffield Wednesday, they're not going to go up. They might want to splash a cash on someone like him as well for next season. Salford as well, they're always got money to chuck. Wrexham, there's these clubs as well that probably, arguably, could spend more than what we're willing to offer them. We could probably pay a handsome sum, but would you want to do it? I'm not too sure. I think it's got to be a financially sensible deal. Again, this is probably he's 26 now. This could be the last opportunity he gets to get a financially rich deal. So I personally do not expect him to stay. I would like him to stay, but I think economically it's got to make sense for Hart. I don't think we should burst the bank from, again, we've done it in the past with players and it's not worked out. Imagine we make him our joint highest earner and we send him a 3-year deal, 4-year deal even, and we get the performance we did from him last season. It's no value for money, is it? So it's a hard one. I think it's got to be the right deal. What do you think?
I'd be quite happy to keep him. I think he's been really good and playing in that role now further forward. I think it suited him because we know we can play the ball in behind. I mean, Shanklin's not the quickest. And I think Oda does have that pace, but I think Ginnelli's been excellent. And you look at the goals he's scoring as well. The goal he scored against Ross Kent a few weeks ago, a really good touch inside and a great finish at the top corner. He has shown a lot more, and his finishing's got a lot better. So I think a lot of Hearts fans would be quite happy to keep him. I do agree. Maybe I wouldn't burst the bank to keep him, but if he wants to stay, and I think he wants a 3-year deal, he wants his family up on that as well and security, which is fine. But I would be, if he stayed, I'd be delighted because I think he has been very, very good. He has been very, very good. And I think as well, I mean, that front four we've got now, maybe taking aside Barry Mackay, but Oda, Ginnelli, and Shankland have been very impressive. The interchange. And it's adding a bit more of a goal threat that Naismith talked about after the Hibs game. We didn't have enough goal threat, and now we kind of do. And Ginnelli was a massive miss against Hibs because we had nobody to play the ball over the top to. When he's not playing, you notice it more because we don't have that pace up top. So I'd be quite happy to keep him.
Yeah, definitely. As I said, I like him. I think he's a really good player. And I think he suits that forward role. I would never play him out wide again. Sure, there was a game he played right wing back for us as well. And I'm like, I shudder to think we've kind of wasted him there at times and over the last couple of years. But yeah, definitely good enough. But would I pay him the same wages as Lawrence Shankland? Probably not. But again, I do think we have to kind of make him a kind of towards the topper end of our earners to keep him. But I think he will be offered some riches from down south, unfortunately, and that's again, if he was offered 4 times, if anyone's offered 4 times a salary for another company, you're going to go, aren't you? So I hope that doesn't happen, but we'll wait and see.
Scott asked the question, what about John Fleck from Sunderland? His contract's up. John Fleck's 31. I don't know if that's the route we really want to go down. He's a good player, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if that's the route we really want to go down.
We've already had a staunch left-footed centre midfielder that was Rangers minded and Andy Halliday, so I'm pretty fine with that. I do think we do need centre mids as well, and I do get the shout of a kind of John Fleck, someone who's going to kind of be almost like a kind of deep lying playmaker. I do get that, but then he's probably quite similar in a way to defensively minded playmaker sort of types in Beningame, Devlin, Haring, Keogh. So we've kind of got a much of what we need a proper kind of a midfield A or a kind of box to box midfielder. So I think that's what we need. But yeah, depending who we shipped out and depending what the contract situation was like in terms of money and stuff. But again, I think is it Sheffield United? He's at still maybe not Sunderland, and I'd imagine he's still on a pretty penny as well from English Championship wages. So wouldn't be surprised if he ended up back at Rangers, for example, given the kind of wages that he's probably been accustomed to.
Someone who won't be at Hearts is Stephen Humphreys, who obviously was told that a few days ago he was going to be leaving. Was that a surprise? Are you disappointed that he's left?
So from what I understand, obviously he's not been getting his wages from Wigan for five months or so, or 5 times, whatever. So, I mean, that's a bit of a basket case of a club anyway. So again, going back, it's almost taking us back to our days under Romanov where players weren't getting paid. So obviously, from what I understand, he's probably getting some sort of like a basic salary from Hearts sort of thing, but I don't know whether that's paid to him or they're paid to Wigan and it's part of, Wigan pays overall wages. But, if you're going 5 months without getting properly paid, I can imagine it's unsettling, and that probably dovetails him with his kind of nose diving form from the World Cup. So again, looking at human aspect side of it as well, is if you're unsettled, you're not getting your money to pay your bills, pay your lifestyle, whatever, obviously that's going to be unsettling, and obviously you're not going to train as hard because you're worried about it, and game days you're not getting the team, and then game days you're not fully focused and stuff. So it's a bit sad actually how it's kind of ended, because I think after Florence, I think everyone would have wanted him to sign the contract there and then. But it's just a bit of a shame how it's all kind of ended and stuff, because I think I love for me, my ideal sort of guy, favourite type of player for Hearts is a big 6 foot striker that's big and burly, pacey, is a bit of a character as well that gets the fans on side. Mauricio Pinilla, big back down, like someone like that, that's a bit different, and obviously Humphreys had all those ingredients, so I think everyone was willing him to be a success. He scored that goal against Dundee United as well, which again, can't believe never got goal of the season.
Didn't he? I'm still raging about that.
Because some Celtic fans hijacked it because Jota scored an absolute fucking Bairns goal past a Rangers keeper. But that's sad. And I mean, who knows? He might end up back at Hearts, because again, I believe he was on a pretty decent wage at Wigan as well, and that's why they're in financial difficulties, right? He was on, from what I believe, a ridiculous sum of money. It's something again that would probably be about 4 times we were willing to pay a kind of top earners and stuff like that. So yeah, and if you're missing that your wage over 5 months, you can understand the difficulties that causes. But it's a shame. It is a real shame in terms of what's happened. But what's your kind of memories of Stephen Humphreys, his time in a Hearts jersey?
Well, it's the same as Scott. We'll remember for scoring one against Hibs and one of the best goals at Tynecastle. And again, I shouldn't be surprised, when that vote came out for goal of the season, it was Jota. I was like, are you taking the piss? I mean, seriously, you score for your own half and don't get goal of the season, but these votes are rigged anyway. But yeah, I mean, I think he did well. I mean, the goal against Hibs, the layoff for the goal against for Shankland at Easter Road, I think he did very well. There were moments at times that I thought he looked a bit disinterested. And like you said, if he's not getting his wages, he's got a family and that support, I can understand that. But I'm disappointed to see him go, because I think he did well. But, I mean, for me, we could always bring Uche back. You've talked about a 6 foot guy with pace. Bring him back in, you never know.
Oh, crikey. You'd be better getting Whamma back. Hopefully learn the offside rule. Aye. I mean, it'll be interesting. I think it'll be interesting as well this season. I reckon in the summer, we'll be up against Hibs and Aberdeen for similar players. I reckon one of Duke or Miofsky will leave, so I reckon they'll be in for a striker. Hibs will be in for a striker as well, because they've got 2 loan guys as well. We'll be up for a striker. I reckon all sides will be in for a left back as well. Potentially Hearts again, maybe more as a backup, but Hibs and Aberdeen will be in for one. I think all sides will be up for a centre half as well, and for them. And potential for a right back as well for all the sides. So centre mid, I think every team could do with a centre mid. So we'll be interested, because we'll be up against them for a lot of players. We'll be interested to see who goes where, but we'll need to see how all that transpires.
I'm going to throw this out there, right? Now, I know that he's just signed a new contract, but do you think Hearts might sign Joel Nubley from Livingston?
I believe Martin Dale said in a couple of podcasts that he's wanting silly money for him. And again, I believe that there was a club in January bid like 250 grand or something, someone from, I don't know if it was League One or League Two or something in England, and they turned it down. So, I mean, you're maybe imagining that Livy might want, let's just say £500,000 here, right? We'll probably double the money there. Is Joel Nubley worth £500,000 to a Hearts? I don't know. Because again, say you get Janelli and say you get obviously Shankland for next season, is it worth having a 500 grand striker who comes on seldomly? Again, blocking a youth prospect. Again, what games would we put him in? Hearts fans would expect him to score twice when he gets a 10-minute cameo at Tynecastle. If he doesn't, he's a dud. Is it worth it? I don't know. I think again, financially it's got to make sense, but I do want us to get a kind of physical striker. I love when the pundits go big physical Hearts, and you've got Janelli and Shankland and Cammy Devlin and all that, and Oda, big physical Hearts doing it again. We didn't have anyone physical, so I would love us to get a physical player just so we can go back to the stereotype and just wind them up.
If they've watched us defending, surely they can't say we're big and physical, because we're clearly not.
Derek McInnes, it usually says that. So I've obviously not had him in the split. So I don't know where he'll end up next season. So I think Kelly are in precarious position as well. But yeah, I missed that from Derek McInnes. Big physical hearts. You know what you're getting. Tommy Wright said it as well. He used to always call us big physical hearts as well. So I do want a big target man. So again, just for to kind of switch up a bit, but we'll get onto that, I'm sure, in terms of the new manager and their style.
Well, on Saturday, we host Aberdeen at Tynecastle at 12:30, a game that's not on telly. Now, yesterday, I had the privilege of being on the Red Tinted Glasses podcast, Aberdeen podcast, talking about the game on Saturday. And they were asking questions about, like, where Hearts are vulnerable. And I basically did say set pieces. And they've got players that could hurt us, centre-back position. Now, probably third place, as much as I hope it still happens, it's going to be very hard. Because even if we beat Aberdeen, we've got to go to Ibrox, so we don't really win. And then last game of the season against Hibs. How massive a game is this game on Saturday night?
Oh, it's massive. Like, I mean, let's be honest here. I think we've got to have the mindset we're playing for fourth. And if we get third, it's a bonus, right? I know, I certainly hope Naismith doesn't say that to the players anyway. Like, oh, we're playing for fourth. Like, you'll still believe it's possible. And I think, again, I don't know if this is just blind optimism. I think we'll win the game. I just see there's something from the players. There's something under Naismith, something under Tynecastle, how we're playing. I do reckon we can do it. I mean, I don't think it'll be another 5-0 like we had earlier in the season at Tynecastle, but I don't know. I just think with the fans on side with the players, I mean, I don't know whether we're going to have no ball boys again or ball girls, which we had against Celtic, which was a great tactic. I love that. But we'll play the game. We'll be quite savvy and stuff. So I don't know who will perhaps come in. I mean, I don't know if we'll have Haring suspended or not, but I would imagine that it'll be similar setup to Celtic and Ross County. I think that's how I would see it. And listen, if we don't win, again, that'll pay chances for Naismith getting a job on a full-time basis. I mean, personally, I wouldn't employ him unless he gets third. Again, it's a hard one because I still would have doubts giving him the job on a full-time basis. But if Naismith manages to recover third place from 5 points out with 3 games to go, it's going to be quite hard to overlook it, given obviously all the sort of praise Barry Robson's had. But I mean, I believe we can win on Saturday. We just need to treat it as we did Ross County and Celtic. How do you think we'll fare in Saturday's game?
I think being at home, I have a feeling I think we'll win. I think it'll be difficult. And the fact they may not have Duke, which will be a huge bonus for us if he's not playing, but it is a massive game. We have to start on the front foot. We have to put what they have against Celtic and Ross County. I think obviously Cochrane will come back in because he's not suspended for this game. Haring hopefully wins his appeal. Other than that, I'll probably make many changes. But then again, we talked about Barry McKayler on. Is he going to play? Probably. But we have to win this game. And that was going to be my next question, actually. We kind of answered it as well. Have you seen enough in these 4 games want you to give Naismith the job? Because I know that he's done okay in a couple of games. He's got 4 points out of 12. I can see a style of play that he wants to try and play. But for me, I still want more experience as a manager.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think he needs to be in the setup of any new manager coming in. That's what happened with Barry Robson as well. So Barry Robson got the job after Glass in terms of interim manager. He wanted it. He didn't get it. He went to Goodwin. He was then brought in as a first-team coach. I would like Naismith to get that opportunity of being first-team coach or assistant. I think what he's trying to implement, I absolutely get. He's obviously trying to be attacking football and stuff. So it's just that he's not really been tested in terms of adversity. You could argue this is an adverse time in terms of, trying to recover third place and stuff and coming in when fans are driving and stuff and rescue a season. So you could argue that as adversity, but I don't think we've had a large enough sample size to see where Naismith strengths and weaknesses are as a manager. Again, I know he was linked with St Mirren last year before Robinson got the job. I mean, that would have been a good fit in terms of like a kind of starting off at a team and then progressing to a Hearts, Hibs, Aberdeen. I think should never really be given rookie managers a first go at it. We've seen with Sean Maloney, we've seen with Stephen Glass, like, you know, and I get Nace was a bit different because he's played with us and stuff and being a youth coach, but you know, I wouldn't give him the job. But if you ask me in 3 games' time, once we've beat Hibs 5-1 at Tynecastle to clinch third place, I'll be screaming from the Gorgie stand, give that man the job now. Do a Lennon, get him in the showers, get the contract signed there and then. Like, I will be hypocritical and be saying that's what I want to happen.
What's your score prediction for the game on Saturday?
I believe it will be 3-1 Hearts. I don't know why 3-1. I think we'll be quite attacking. I think it will be like one of those games where it'll be 2-1 and then hit on the counter and get a late third. I think Odell will feature. I think obviously Shanklin, Ginnelly, as you said earlier, it's a really formidable attacking trio. I don't necessarily think Mackay will definitely start. I don't know why. I know Nason's got a kind of a fancy for him, but I don't necessarily think he will. Naismith's shown that he's not made big decisions. And, I mean, I don't know. I'm not convinced Mackay's a definite starter in this game. So I think, and if that is the case, if I see no Mackay, I'll be gladly going onto my bookies account and putting 3-1 down as a score prediction. But I think we're going to win this. What's your thoughts on it?
I'm going 2-1. I think it'll be tight. I think my worry is, again, defensively. And if we give away set pieces, they're going to be a threat with the players they've got. And the fact that Leighton Clark's going to put decent ball in the box, so we have to be strong defensively. But I do feel that attacking threat we've got, especially with, I said this on their podcast last night, the pace of Ginnelly and Shankland as well, I think could cause them problems. So I think 2-1. I think it'll be tight, but I think we will get the win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, 3-1, 2-1. As long as we get a win, Graham, I don't really care how it's done. If it's a hit of someone's backside and goes in, we win 1-0, I'll take that. It means a clean sheet as well.
Cue a Cammy Devlin hat-trick. Masterclass incoming now.
Aye, a tackle, hit off his backside, and then like a defender hits it off him.
Well, Greg, I know you've got to go, but thank you so much for joining me tonight, mate. It's been much appreciated.
Thanks for having me on, Graham.
No worries. Get you back on again soon, hopefully.
Perfect. Glad to do that.
Brilliant, mate. Thank you very much.
Cheers now.
See you later on. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So that was Greg Playford that joined me tonight. I know Greg quite well. We're on a different kind of couple of Scottish football podcasts. He's a really good Hearts guy. He's done a couple of different things on BBC Sport as well. So delighted to have him on from our second podcast tonight. And thank you again to everyone that's watched. Scott, Aberdeen play Celtic when we play Rangers at the last game. So when we Rangers, Aberdeen play St Mirren. Aberdeen's last game, Celtic, which I think's at Parkhead. But you've got to imagine that, well, Celtic will have the flag day that day, so they might be up for it. Scott, a man after my own heart. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I mean, I think Saturday, I seem to say every week that the next game is a massive game. This one generally is. Because if we don't win here, then third's definitely gone. We've got to give ourselves a chance. Now, I think for me, Aberdeen beating Rangers was a massive one. Because before that, we'd beat Ross County 6-1. It was back to 2 points. Aberdeen then beat Rangers. That was huge. Had they not won that game, we still had a chance. But it's going to be very difficult now, I think. It really will be very difficult. We have to win on Saturday. That's the only thing we can do. And then we've got to hope that things go for us. So we have to go to Ibrox and win. We'd have to hope that St Mirren gets something on to then take it to the last game in the Derby game. It's going to be very difficult. I'm going to be honest, and I've said this for weeks, I think third is probably gone. The best we'll probably do is fourth, which for me isn't really good enough. You know, we had to get third this season. After what happened last season, we knew we had that 5 million to get this season, and we've kind of blown it. Now, again, while it's mathematically still possible, then it is still there, but I just think it's going to be too much for us to get a 5-point gap back with 3 games to go, and the fact we play Rangers at Ibrox where we just don't win, I just think it's gone. But we have to win on Saturday to give us a chance. I think for me, the team will probably be along the lines of And this is assuming that Haring is available. I think the team will be pretty much the same. Actually, I think it will be Xander Clark in goal. I think it will be Atkinson coming in at right back, although Hill has done okay the last 2 games. Then it'll be Rowell, Civic and Cockram. It'll be Haring if he's available. And I think it will be that front 4 again of Oda, Shanklin, Mackay and Ginnelly. But I do get where Liam Corbett came from yesterday on the This Is My Story, and Greg earlier on about Barry Mackay. He's somebody used the word on the podcast last night, he's an enigma, and he is. He's got so much ability, and he could be a brilliant player, but he just doesn't have the application. If you look at Oda, for example, Oda never stops trying. Oda works back. Oda tries to win challenges and break forward. Barry Mackay doesn't do that. Barry Mackay is not the kind of guy that you want in the trenches with you. And we need that on Saturday, because we're going to be under pressure against Aberdeen. There's no doubt about that. He will start. Not playing Halliday at right back. No, I wouldn't play Halliday working anywhere, because the guy, I genuinely don't rate the guy at all. Scott, I've more than said enough about Barry Mackay. Yeah, you have to be fair. But yeah, I mean, I just think that, and again, the problem is that if you don't play Barry Mackay, then you're playing either Alan Forrest or Garan Kuyol. Now, Garan Kuyol is not getting a chance for some bizarre reason. And Alan Forrest, a lot of folks said, isn't good enough. But again, as Corbett said yesterday on the podcast, and I do agree with this, at least when Forrest gets the ball, he does try to take people on. Barry Mackay doesn't do that. And again, Alan Forrest will trap, but Barry Mackay doesn't do that. So if he plays on Saturday, and I think he will, he's got to offer far more, because we've got 3 games to go. And listen, I'm going to be honest, playing Barry Mackay at Ibrox is going to be pointless, because he's not going to turn up in that game. But I think he will start on Saturday. But this is a huge game on Saturday. It's massive. We have to win this and give ourselves a chance to get back in it. Aberdeen play St Mirren at Pittodrie, I think it is, when we play Rangers. Again, you've got to assume that Aberdeen will win that game, but you never know. Hibs went in at the weekend and pummeled them, really, and just didn't score. St Mirren have got threats there, as we've shown numerous times. So it could be a difficult game. Ideally, I would like to be going into the last game against Hibs with a chance to get third. So let's say the gap's 2 points. They've got to go to Celtic Park where they won't win. So it would give us a chance, but this game on Saturday is huge. We have to win it. We've got to get 3 points here. A draw's not good enough. I think the fans have a massive say in this game as well. I think the fans will be right on top of us right for the start, which will help. And we need to have a fast start. We've done that in the last 2 games against County and Celtic. We need to do exactly the same thing again. It won't be 5-0 again. I would love that, but the positive for us might be that Duke might not be fit because he got taken off on Saturday. That could be a bonus if he's not available. I hope that Haring gets his red card rescinded. Fucking ridiculous red card in the first place. As I mentioned earlier on there with Greg, it was a terrible, terrible decision. But it's going to be a huge game, a massive game on Saturday, and I am going to go 2-1. I'm going to go Ginnelly and Shanklin to score. I don't know who'll score for them. I don't really care, but it'll be tough. But we have to win. 3 points is a must. 100% need 3 points, so it's do or die on Saturday. Yeah, 100% it is. Absolutely do or die. And this is the frustration for me, because, again, I've spoken about this in the Twitter spaces that I've done. I've spoken about this numerous times. The fact that if you look at after the World Cup break, we had a 10-point gap over Aberdeen, and we're now 5 points behind them. That's unforgivable. That should never have happened. Now, I'm not going to say that halfway through that I thought third was wrapped up, because it wasn't. But we're in a great position, and we threw it away. And it's unforgivable, to be honest. And I think the board have got a massive decision to make after the summer. So the last game is a week on Sunday against Hibs. After that, the board have got a massive decision to make. Do they go, and this might sound harsh, the cheap option and give it to Naismith? Or do they push the boat out and bring somebody else in more experienced? I want option B, to be fair. I think Naismith, for me, in the Twitter chats as well, there have been signs of encouragement. I think the games against County and Celtic, they were very good. We played in the front foot. We attacked Celtic more than we have done on numerous occasions. And the Ross County game was great. We pressed, we competed well, we won the ball back quickly. But then you caveat that with the 2 away games we played. Hibs was terrible. But again, I don't think there's much Naismith could have done in that game because he only had 4 days to get the team prepared for that game. But the performance was really poor. And then Saturday, I said before the game, it was a must. And they come out and play like that in the first half. That didn't look like a must-win game to me. So there has been signs of encouragement. But on the flip side of that, there have been signs of the Robin Nielsen kind of era again. So I am very much in the... And also, you look at the fact that he's only got 4 points out of 12 so far. So if you're looking at it from a points thing, he can't get the job. And I said on Saturday at 2-0 down, I'm sorry, Stevie, but you can't get the job full time. Now, we did come back in the game. I showed a lot of spirit again, which was good. But for me, Naismith can't get the job full time. We need more experience in there. Now, Chris Wilder, whether it's him, I don't know. Whether I want him, I don't. But we need more experience in there. And we need a new manager to come in straight away. As soon as the season finishes, get a new manager in there. And then clear the decks of players that you don't want. Now, I do think the encouraging thing for me the last week or so, and Greg mentioned it earlier, the amount of young players were signed up to new deals, which is great. And again, today, Mackenzie Kirk signed a new 1-year deal, which is brilliant. Really, really encouraging that. Whether we'll see a lot of first-team football, I don't know. And this is what I'm kind of at as well, is have these young players signed these new deals because they've been told that Naismith's getting the job full-time? I don't know. I can't answer that. I wish I could. But it is great that we're actually getting these young players signed up on long-term deals. It's brilliant because they've clearly got talent. They just don't get used enough. And it was great to see Wilson on the bench on Saturday. He was never going to get on unless we were 3 or 4 up. But it was a great experience for him to be on there. So I think these next couple of weeks are really going to be defining for Hearts, where we finish and who bring in the summer or after the season's finished as manager. It has to be done quickly. Because you've got players that will be leaving in the summer. You know, doesn't your manager want these guys to stay? Does he want them to go? For me, as I mentioned earlier, I would keep Ginnelly. If I'm going through the team for Saturday, right, Xander Clark, I'm keeping. James Hill can go. Rolls is on a 5-year deal. He stays. Civic stays. Halliday, for me, can go. I just don't rate the guy at all. I'm going to be honest. I've said that before. I don't rate the guy. Devlin, I'm keeping. Haring, I'm keeping for another year. I think I'm a massive fan of Peter Haring. I think he offers a lot to that team. He brings a bit of a composure at midfield. I'm keeping him. Ginnelly, I'm keeping. Shanklin, clearly, I'm keeping. Oda, 3-year contract, you're keeping. I'm trying to think who else was there. Barry Mackay. This is a tough one for me because I do like Barry Mackay, but again, he doesn't show in enough big games. So if Barry Mackay was to leave, I wouldn't be gutted. But would manager, would a new manager get more of it? I don't know. This is where I'm at with it. I don't know. But if Mackay was to leave, I wouldn't be disappointed. I'm going to be honest. Subs, Ross Stewart can go because he's pish. Atkinson can probably stay, to be fair. I'm not a massive fan of defensively. Atkinson going forward is fine, but probably keep him. Ross Stewart, I mean, genuinely, he's not worse than Pereira, but he's a dreadful goalkeeper. I mean, Ross Stewart can go quite easily. Keogh, get rid, seriously. I know he's in a 3-year contract, but just chuck him because he's a dreadful footballer. I've been honest about this. I always will be. He's a dreadful footballer. He offers nothing. Passes are sideways and backwards. Doesn't tackle. He's just awful. Get rid of Keogh. 100% get rid of Keogh. Garang Keogh is going to go back. And again, I really feel sorry for Garang Keogh because there's clearly something there with the laddie, or else numerous clubs would have been after him. But we've just never seen it because he's not got. And what showed it to me was that Ross County game. You're 6-0 up with half an hour to go. You don't bring him on. That kind of sums it up for me. It was a vanity signing. I was excited when he signed. I don't know why, because I don't know who he was. But I think I fell into the trap of thinking, this guy must be a player if we signed him. And he's just never performed. Scott Kuhl, torture. Do you know, I do feel sorry for him because he's just not been given a chance to show anything. I know at times he's looked a bit he's knocked off the ball too easily. There goes that softness thing I talked about earlier on a bit defensively. But he is very, very raw. Now, he'll go back to Newcastle, and I guarantee he'll end up at a championship team next season, and he'll be great. You just know it'll happen. As soon as he leaves Hearts, he'll be brilliant. And then Newcastle fans will say, oh, shouldn't have gone to Hearts in the first place. But I do feel sorry for him, because there's clearly something about him. He's just not doing enough. James Wilson signed a new deal. Fantastic. Alan Forrest, I think I keep him as a squad player. Again, I think he's actually offered more than Barry Mackay in some games, to be honest. At least he looks to try and do something. Barry Mackay doesn't do enough of that. So, yeah, a few of the players I wouldn't mind keeping. Obviously, the players that come back, Halkett, you're keeping. Boyce, you're keeping. Benny, you're absolutely keeping. And this is the thing for next season. So, right now, aside from new signings, because we don't know who they're going to be, but right now, if I was to pick a team based on the players we've got for next season, I'm probably going 4-2-3-1, and I'm going Xander Clark in goal. I'm not really. I'm going Craig Gordon in goal. Back four is Atkinson, Halkett, and I'm going to play Sibic alongside Halkett. I think Sibic could do a lot alongside Halkett other than Rolls. And then Alec Cochrane at left back. Midfield, this is tough. Really tough, because I love Cammy Devlin. And I've said that before. But probably I'm putting Benny in there, which is harsh because I do love Cammy Devlin. The three in front of that, I'm keeping probably, I'm going to play Oda, Liam Boyce, and Josh Ginnelly, and I'm playing Lauren Shankland up front. That won't be the team next season because we will sign new players. What positions, I don't know. But obviously, Humphreys has gone. We need another striker in there. Midfield, I think Greg's right. We need more midfielders in there, and we need to be stronger defensively for me. Going by what you said, we need a good 5 or 6 players for next season. Yeah, absolutely we do. And I'm sure it's in the pipeline. I'm sure that Savage and McKinley are working hard behind the scenes. And I know, do you know what? Somebody said to me on Twitter, Naismith might not want the job. He does. Absolutely guaranteed Naisy wants that job. There's no way he wants to go back to the B team. He wants a job full time. He wants to be managing his own right. He wants that job full time. If he's offered it, he's not going to turn it down. So, end of this season, if McKinley and Savage go to him and say, do you want the job full time? He will say yes. I've got no doubt about that. And I don't think he's ready for it yet. I think, for me, and actually Greg said this before as well, and I do agree with this, and a few folk have said it as well. For me, we can't be hiring managers as a kind of project. We're too big for that. We did it with Ian Cathro. It didn't work. After he got sacked, we then, Anne Budge said, Austin McPhee's in the driving seat for that. No, he's not. Austin McPhee was never getting that job. Stephen Naismith, for me, isn't ready for this job yet, because next season, even if we finish 4th, it's still European football. It's not group stage, but it's still European football. So he's going to be juggling European football, league games, Scottish Cup, and League Cup. He's not got the experience for that. So that's where I'm at with that. I don't want Naisy getting the job full time. I'm happy for him to be an assistant. No debate about that at all. Happy for him being the coaching staff, but not as a manager. If at the end of the season, listen, I'm going to say this now, right? End of the season comes, Naismith gets the job full time. I will back him 100%, as I have with any manager we've had. But it's the wrong decision for me. It would be the cheap option. Sorry, who was that play you just said was in the pipeline? Did I say someone was in the pipeline? I forgot about that. I think Joe Nubley, I have heard from Livingston, is a possible signing for the new season. He did sign a new contract, but apparently David Martin Dussere is going to leave, and I think he was potentially Hearts bound from what I heard. Nicky Devlin is going to Aberdeen. Again, that's what I've heard. Anyway, he's going to Aberdeen. But we are going to need 5 or 6 new players, especially for what we're going to be doing next season. As I just mentioned there, European football. I think if we get 4th, we're back early July. I think, to be honest, anything that stops us playing in that fucking Premier Sports Viaplay Cup pish, I'll be happy to have. But yeah, we do need a few new players. But that's where I'm at with Naismith. I don't want him to get in the job full time. People might say that's harsh. People might have different opinions, and that's fine. But I don't want to get in the job full time. Scott, that the striker from Livingston. Yep, that's the one. He's a good player, actually. He's a good footballer. I've watched him numerous times. He's quick. He's skillful. He's a decent finisher as well. Maybe not scored enough goals for Livingston, but he's a good player. And I think he'd be a good forward. He's cost us numerous problems before. I'd be quite happy with Joe Newbley. Or even the guy for Ayr United, Dipo Akinyemi. He scored loads of goals in the Championship. And again, folk will say, oh, it's Championship. Look at Shankland. Shankland's got goals in the Championship. And he scored 26 goals for us this season. So it's a decent level there. But yeah, I think we do need to think outside the box for a new manager, I think. But these next 3 games, they're going to be massive, but no more massive than Saturday. We have to win this game. Win that 2 points behind. Aberdeen might start panicking a little bit. And maybe we go to Ibrox and get something. Doubtful, I know, but maybe. Because their season's done. Their season is done. They've won the We Beat Celtic in a game that didn't matter cup a couple of days ago. So they've done what they want to do. They might rest players in that game, I don't know. But it's going to be massive. But Saturday's huge. We have to win this game. And before I finish tonight, as I mentioned on the little tag earlier on, 25 years ago today, Heart of Midlothian beat Rangers 2-1 in the Scottish Cup final, thanks to goals from a Colin Cameron penalty and Stefan Adam. Alan occurred late on for Rangers, but it ended a long run without a trophy. And it was incredible. I was 20 years old. I had been at the 95-96 final when we got beat 5-1. I'd been at the Coca-Cola Cup semi, the final against Rangers again at Celtic Park as well. We got beat 4-3 when Neil McCann was incredible the second half. And he won a bike, if I remember rightly as well. But I went into that game in 98, glorious sunshine. I travelled through the Rainbow Heart supporters bus from Christophin in hope than expectation, because I'd been to the last 2 and thought we're probably going to lose this as well. But it was a great day. It was an unbelievable day. The sun was shining. We were outside, me and my mate that went through in the bus. We stood outside Celtic Park for probably a couple of hours before we got there, just soaking the atmosphere in. And it was brilliant. Going at the ground, we were really high up at Celtic Park, like really high up. And when we got the penalty and Cameron scored, you're thinking, right, we've got 10 minutes to hold on here. That's what it felt like. And I'm sure at one point, that Jim Jeffries has said to Chick Younger, the 4th official, how long to go. But it was just, when Adam scored the second goal, and obviously Amoruso lets it run. Great handle, I love that. It was incredible. And I thought, we're going to do it. We're going to win the cup. Honestly, we're going to do it. McCoy scores like he does. And then, in the last couple of minutes or so, McCoy scores down at the edge of the box, and you're thinking, oh no, we've blown it. It's a penalty. But thankfully, they don't. It's a free kick, and Amoruso does what he does and blasts it over the bar. And I remember Jim Jeffries saying after the game, or maybe a podcast as well, where he said that the big problem was the fact that George Alberts was suspended for that game because he got sent off against United for dangerous play, which meant he missed the final, which was great for us. But when Willie Collum got a whistle, the relief was immense. Scott was roasting that day. Yeah, it was just the relief, the celebration. It was just an unbelievable day. I mean, I'm lucky enough, as a lot of Hearts fans are now, to have seen us win 3 Scottish Cups against Rangers, Gretna, which was horrendous, and Hibs. But 98 sticks in memory because it was the first one that's seen us win. And going home on the bus that day with Hearts Supporters Lounge was just, the atmosphere of the bus was frightening. It was brilliant. Just celebrating. And again, I said this on Twitter, the first thing I did after we won that game was get off the bus, go to the petrol station and buy a pink newspaper. You remember the pink newspapers? They were great. And I think I read every page, front to back to front, middle to back, just to soak it in. And then went out and got ridiculously hammered. But it was just incredible. For a 20-year-old to be celebrating a Scottish Cup win was just sensational. And what made it even sweeter, I think, as well, and I wish he'd got on, but to see John Robertson collecting a trophy and a winner's medal was just, it was so great to see. And I know, again, listen to podcasts that Jim Jeffries was going to bring Robbo on, but circumstances dictated that he couldn't. Jim Hamilton came on, he was really good that day. And again, I look through that team and I think, Gary Naismith played in that game as a youngster. He was great. Grant Murray, Paul Ritchie, Stefano Salvatore, God rest him, David Weir, the redemption of Gilles Rousset after what happened in '96, Stefan Adam, Thomas Fogel, Colin Cameron, Steve Fulton, Neil McCann, Jim Hamilton. It was a great side that season. It was a brilliant side. Just fell short winning the league. I genuinely thought we'd win the league that season. And again, I go back to games that season that stick in the memory for me. And it was that game at Tynecastle against Celtic when Jose Katongo scored that about 25th deflected goal. I've never seen Tynecastle go mental like that. It was incredible. And I thought, we've got a chance here. I went to Ibrox for, I can't remember when it was. It might have been April, I think. We drew 2-2. Stefan Adam scored and Jim Hamilton scored, and George Albert scored a free kick in the last minute to dent our hopes. But that was a brilliant season. We played some great football that season. Beat Hibs a couple of times at Easter Road as well. And it was a great side we had then. Obviously, it got disbanded after that, disappointingly, but it was just that day. I mean, Steve Fulton, that run at the box, I've never seen a guy go red like that in my life after a couple of minutes, but he was brilliant that day. Everyone in a Heart shirt was great that day. They definitely earned their trophy that day. And the celebrations, the Sunday as well, going into Gorgie, seeing the bus coming back, going to Tynecastle itself and celebrating inside the ground. These are memories that you don't forget about. I hope that my son, when he's 11 now, I hope that he's got those memories when he grows up. There'll be downfalls, of course there will be, as that's a football fan. But when they're like that, when their highs are high, they're brilliant. And honestly, that 98 final was unbelievable. One of the best days of my life, celebrating that. And then we've won 2 more since. What more could I ask for? We should have won more than that, though, to be fair. I'm still raging we've not won the League Cup yet. St Mirren in 2013, how we didn't win that game. I was going to say I don't know, but I do know. We had Michael Ngoo and John Sutton up front. That's how we didn't win the game. But it was just unbelievable. Scott, memories that will live for a long, long time. 100%. These are football fans, I say, are fickle, but see, when it comes to games like that, memories like that, you don't forget them. My laddie was only 3 months old when Hearts beat Hibs in this Scottish Cup final. He doesn't know what it's like, and I hope that in time he will get to know that. He's now watched Hearts for quite a long, long time. He sits and watches the games with me. He's got Heart strips. He's been to Tynecastle with me for a few games. And I hope those memories as well that I had growing up watching Hearts winning Scottish Cups, because it's phenomenal. It really is. There's no other feeling like it. And I think for me, if I was to put the finals in categories, 98's top, then Hibs, then Gretna for me. Beating your rivals 5-1 in a final is great. But for me, the first one is the one that I always remember, because it meant so much. The Hibs game was just, it was Hibs. Let's be honest, it was Hibs. But it was just great. It really was fantastic. But I have done it longer than I planned to do today. Thank you to everyone that's watched. Thank you for all your comments, especially to Scott, who I know comes on my Twitter chats quite a lot, which is obviously great. I'll hopefully maybe do. I'm going to try and split my time between doing Twitter Space and doing these. I'll probably do more of these like next season, when it's obviously I've only started doing this before the season finishes, but I'll probably do more of these next season. I want to try and keep doing my Twitter Spaces because they're actually very encouraging. And again, next season, I'm going to be on a new Scottish football podcast. We set it up as a Scottish Football Network. It's actually on Twitter now as well, and it'll be on YouTube and that as well. We're going to be talking about pretty much all the Scottish games as they happen, and I think we might even get a Hearts podcast as well during that as well. So keep your eyes out for that. But again, thank you everyone that's watched. Thank you everyone that's commented, and I shall probably do a Twitter Space after the game on Saturday. I'll maybe decide. But again, thank you everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.